Global Voices is a vast global conspiracy. It's the project of a couple hundred volunteers, a few paid staff members, and the contributions of thousands of bloggers all over the world. We don't ensure the credibility of the bloggers that we work with, and we don't pretend to. And we try to be very honest about the constraints involved with trying to deal with blogger credibility. So here's the thing. We are not a conventional news agency. We are a lousy place to go if you're looking for breaking news on what just happened in a corner of the world. We are a much, much better place to go if you're interested in what sort of conversations people are having in different corners of the world. There are circumstances where, by virtue of the fact that we have people in the right place at the right time, we end up breaking news. But it is emphatically not our focus. Basically, all of our work happens around this idea of filtering for the interesting stories, translating from the languages that people are speaking in, contextualizing to package things as a story that makes sense to an international audience. We have a division that works on spreading citizen media beyond just wealthy communities in the developing world and bringing it into poorer and poorer communities, and that group is called Rising Voices. And we end up doing a lot of work on free speech issues, trying to ensure that the internet remain an open environment for speech through Global Voices advocacy. Collectively, all these projects have a common aim. We're really interested in ensuring that people all over the world can speak, and we're really interested in ensuring that they can be heard. And those actually turn out to be separate problems. We have a lot of fellow travelers working on this question of ensuring that people get to speak. There actually are a lot fewer people working on these questions of media attention and focus and whether or not it's possible for people to be heard. I am a senior researcher at the Berkman Center for Internet and Society. I'm the co-founder of Global Voices Online, which is a citizen media website and, maybe more importantly, a community of citizen media activists. Our 6th anniversary will be in November. The site gets quite a bit of traffic. If you put together all of our different language editions, it's in the neighbor of 500,000 unique visitors on a monthly basis. I think it's the sort of project that it's hard not to be a fan of. It's pretty hard to be opposed to increased global understanding. So we don't have a lot of people sort of standing out there saying, you know, Global Voices is a terrible thing. Where we do get critique is whether Global Voices is sustainable. We are a nonprofit. We do take a lot of foundation funding, although increasingly we're making more and more of our money both through licensing content to other partners and through commissioned content. We often get questions about whether our focus on the developing world is a good exclusive focus. People will periodically come up and say, well, how about American voices? There are underheard, underappreciated American voices. We made a decision early on in the project that we were going to focus mostly on parts of the globe that tend not to get a ton of US media attention, and so it really has shifted our focus, and I think there are legitimate questions about that as well. I think a lot of people are aware that there's something wrong with the media that they're getting. I think if you look at questions of trust in media and belief in media, there's widespread belief that media is partisan, that it isn't covering some issues, that it's covering other issues. I think in many ways it's too easy to beat up on media, whether it's professional or citizen media. There's so much in the world to cover, it's so hard to do a decent job of it. Do I think things are changing? Yeah, I think there's a change taking place where this sort of very formal wall between professional and participatory media is breaking down. And what I think is really interesting about it is that 5 years ago we would be sitting here and having a conversation about the war between bloggers and journalists. And of course what's happened is that journalists have become a lot more bloggy. They try very hard to be first, they get things out very quickly, sometimes unedited, sometimes quite sloppily. Professional news organizations, in turn, have opened up citizen inputs into their newsrooms. CNN tells you, I report, please give us footage. At the same time, we've also seen people who started as bloggers do extremely serious, credible journalism. You look at something like Talking Points Muckraker, and you're getting some of the most serious investigative journalism coming out there. So it's all getting very, very blurry. What's not as clear to me is whether the amount of time and energy that people are putting into questions like, does American media have a left or a right bias? You know, American media has a US bias. The real problem that I see is that we don't get a ton of international news. The stuff that we get tends to be deeply crisis-centric. It's extremely spiky. It comes into play around a world event. It has almost no context behind it. And much of it is eminently forgettable. And, you know, not only does it not taste good, we're getting less and less of it. So I think my worry is this. I think we've done a really nice job of slowly but surely figuring out how to get over this bloggers versus journalists thing. What I'm now interested in seeing if we can get over is this us versus them thing in journalism in general. On the other hand, I'm cognizant of the fact that this isn't just about news organizations being lazy or venal. This is about a perception of what audience there is out there for all of this stuff. An earthquake tends to get all of our attention and get all of our compassion. That's okay, but ideally we need to let that attention and compassion turn into a much longer interest in these events. Citizen media usually comes into play in crisis situations because citizen media is usually the first to the scene. And this isn't just in developing world natural disasters. If you think about the London subway bombings, you know, the most famous photo in all of that was a camera phone photo of people streaming out of the tube and sort of crowding up the escalators, and that was a form of citizen journalism. Because there are not generally a lot of reporters on the ground in Haiti, citizen media was there sooner than everybody else was. Everybody else had to scramble to get there. And so the cycle of media these days sort of includes citizen media reports early on, and sometimes much later on in environments where it's not possible for conventional journalists to operate. Where we think citizen media is really important is when the mainstream media packs their bags, which is never longer than 2 weeks. 2 weeks was about the right time for Haiti. It was also for the Mumbai bombings. In most situations of crisis, reporting is very acute and then drops off very quickly. The issue is that the reconstruction of Haiti is a many-year and possibly a many-decade project. And it's unclear whether professional news organizations are going to keep going back to the story and looking to ensure that the aid money raised is used in the right ways. And that's a place where building up citizen media could be extremely powerful. I think there's probably a difference between a lot of these crisis support tools that we've been talking about with Ushahidi and the Red Cross and such. That's not really the space that we work in. We'll point to those efforts. We tend to be much more about reporting as events happen based on who's on the ground, getting local reactions both to the events and to the reporting of the events, and then trying to keep track of these events on a much longer time frame. So we want to make sure that we have an eye on Haiti for 3, 6 months, a year, or 5 years, coming out of the community that's been affected by this, and not just for a couple of weeks immediately afterwards. Something that I'm taking back from my own work is this wonderful paper by this young Egyptian scholar we had here. She did a really lovely piece of analysis, and she basically said, here's a blog in Egypt produced by Wael Abbas, who's a very well-known activist. This blog has a tendency to break stories that didn't make it into the mainstream Egyptian press. Could we do a comparison between Abbas's blog and the mainstream press and document instances of agenda cutting. I think my favorite conclusion in the whole paper, she was also very curious whether the comment thread on this blog could be viewed as a new digital participatory public space, to which her conclusion was, well, yes, but it's very, very vulgar, which I thought was interesting to sort of discover that same sort of problem. But I thought it was a gorgeous piece of research and a really interesting piece of evidence of the important role that blogs can have in mostly closed societies. And I was thrilled to see that paper out there, and I thought it was indicative of the sort of high quality of scholarship that's being presented here. I'd really expected this to be mostly a practitioner conference. I've actually maybe been most impressed by the academic work I've seen so far.